Okay, so our navbar's not complete, but it's working, and our route views is also working. The only thing to complete the rest of our application is to add more pages. Um, but unfortunately, for that to happen, we need to go back into our Redux store and add more actions and reducers. Because if you remember, our API that we created have other routes that we can have access to. So in the poll routes, we get the user's current polls, the current user's polls, and then we can also get a specific poll or all polls, as well as posting a vote or deleting the poll. So we need to be able to handle all of these API requests in our client side application. So first, we're going to need to add action types. Now, what I'm going to be using is two types of actions. So const set polls, set polls, and export const set current poll. Set, oh my god, current poll. Okay. So this way, set polls is gonna give our entire list of the polls available on our page, and then the current poll is gonna be the individual poll that we're looking up. So these are the only two that we need to create our poll pages, both for all of them as well as our homepage. And then the current poll is going to be necessary for the single poll that we're going to use, as well as the pie chart that we're going to create a little later. With the action types out of the way, let's create the action and reducer files. So make sure we're in the correct directory. So cd into client, and then touch source store actions s slash, and then we're gonna call it polls.js, and then also we're gonna create another file, so store reducers, also called poll.js. Alright, let's open up both of these files, and I'm gonna create the reducers first, just because it's gonna be a lot easier to understand, and the bulk of the logic is gonna live in the actions folder or the actions file. Alright, so just like before, we're gonna import from our action types the actions that we need to use. So set current poll, as well as, I'm gonna put it in front actually, set polls, and then we're gonna create the switch statement to reduce our polls state. So export const polls equals state action, and a switch here, checking the action dot type, and then for each case we're gonna return a different state. So what cases do we have for this one? We're gonna check set polls, and we're just gonna return action dot polls. So the state that we're gonna hold, the payload, is gonna be under the name polls. Likewise, we're gonna create a current poll state equals to empty object, action, and then switch statement, action dot type case set current poll return action dot poll. Default returns the state. Okay, so a couple things. Be aware of the singular versus plural of polls, because we're going to need both, as well as the default state that we're setting it. So all the polls is going to live in an array. So the default state is going to be an empty array, whereas a poll is going to be an object. So the default state is going to be an empty object. So 2 brackets here, and then square brackets here. Okay. All right. Now the actions file, the polls action file. This is going to be the bulk of our logic, and it's going to take a bit more of code. So first, let's import our action types, which is set polls. Let's actually add the file here so I could do tab completion. Set current poll. And then we're also going to need to do errors. So we're going to need the the error action creators. So add error and remove error from /error. And then finally, all of the polls has to communicate, or all of these actions have to communicate with our server. So we need the the API service that we wrote, API from /services/API. There we go. Okay, quite a bit of stuff. But first, let's create our actions. Export const set polls equals polls. The type is going to be set polls, and the polls is going to be coming from the parameter here. Export const set current polls. Poll singular. It takes in the poll, and it's going to return an action with type of set current poll and the poll itself. So here and here. Okay. Okay. And then those are our 2 actions, and now we need to add in our action creators, or also called thunks, and yeah, I believe that's it. Don't worry about the terminology. It can get really confusing if you think about it too much. So export const. So we need to get poll, or all of them. Let's open up curly brackets here, and since this is a thunk, we are going to return a function that takes in the dispatch, and then open up another curly brackets and just do the normal try catch that we use for error, or all asynchronous calls to our API. So try catch error. Let's let's just check auth really quick to see how I did the error. Error is error.response.data. So not destructuring. Error equals error.response.data, and then we're gonna dispatch the add error, right? Dispatch add error error.message. Dispatch add error, error dot message. Okay. Yep. That looks good. All right. So polls is going to be our API call, and this is going to be a GET request. So GET, and the route is going to be polls. So after the API is finished with handling our request, it's going to put all the data into this variable, and then we'll dispatch the correct actions. Set polls with polls, and then we're going to remove any errors. Dispatch remove error in case there are already errors being displayed. Okay. And then we're going to repeat this process for each of the possible routes. So the next one is going to be export const get user polls. Return async dispatch try catch const error equals error dot response dot data dispatch add error dot message. Okay. And then the user's polls is coming back equals await api.call, and this is also a get, and this one's going to be to polls slash user. And just to check really quick the actual route that we need for it, so is in poll, so yeah, slash user, so that's correct. And then dispatch set polls, and dispatch remove error. Okay. So what's the difference between these two? This is going to get all the polls, and this is going to get all of the user's current polls. The only difference between the actual functions is the actual route, the API route that we're calling. I suppose you can refactor this since there's a lot of redundancy, but this is okay for now. Alright, so now we need a put request. So export, or not a put request, a post request to create the poll. And instead of an empty data here, we're actually going to take in data. You could change the variable name if you'd like, if this is too vague for you. So, same thing. Dispatch try catch const error equals error dot response dot data dispatch add error dot message. And here it's going to be poll await api.call post to polls, and then this is when we're going to use our third parameter to send in the data that's coming from here. And then of course we have to dispatch to make sure our data goes to the correct places. So set current poll is going to be here, and we're going to remove errors. So set current poll is going to put into our Redux state, because after you create a poll, you should be able to see which poll you saw, or which poll you just created. Alright, next is going to be get current poll, which is pretty similar as create poll, but here we're going to take in a path, because if you remember, we need the ID to get a specific poll. So, and ID might be a better name for this, but I'm gonna stick with path for now. Async dispatch try catch error cons error equals error dot response dot data dispatch add error dot message cons poll equals to await API dot call to get, it's a get request to polls slash path. So here I'm using the backticks to use a string literal, so then we can interpolate the path variable. It's basically putting this variable in here. I'm pretty sure I've used it earlier, but just a refresher in case that was a little confusing. Dispatch. And what are we dispatching here? Dispatch. This one's remove error. And get current poll is set current poll. Poll. Oops. Alright. Okay, so I feel like I'm missing one. Poll, get, post, get. Oh, we need a vote. So export const vote. This one we need the path for the ID, as well as the data. And the ordering here doesn't matter, but when we call vote, the ordering does matter, because the first parameter is going to be the path, and the second parameter is going to be the data. So yeah, we're setting up the rules here. So whenever we call it in our components, we have to remember that the path comes first. Async dispatch try, and this is going to be a const poll await API dot call post, also backticks polls slash path data dispatch set current poll dispatch remove errors, and then if there are any errors, we'll const error dot response dot data. We'll dispatch the errors. So error dot message. Okay, quite a bit of code, but all of this is necessary for us to continue with creating our React component, a React client application. All right, so nothing too crazy, and let's make sure everything's hooked up. So in our action index, we need to export everything. Dot slash polls. And then in our reducer index, we also have to make sure that we're adding it in. So import I called it polls from / polls, and oh wait, polls. We have 2 exports in polls, so we're gonna actually export both of them like this: polls and current poll. So then we could put it into our combined reducers separately. Okay. Let's check our Redux state really quick. Polls and current polls is available in our reducers. It has the default state of empty array and empty object. The error is working fine, and then the auth is the one we're most accustomed to is also there. Okay. In the next video, we will actually use all of these reducers and action creators in our application, and we're going to create out the polls pages as well as the polls components. Maybe the home page too, since that's going to be just the polls component. All right, I will see you in the next video.